Ahoy hoy, I'm Planet Walk, and a small while ago I found out about a clip from Frank Turek. Now, this clip is about over a year old at this point, but I still want to respond to it because it's just so ironic. And also, it's been a while since I've responded to a video by Frank Turek. Last time I did so, I was literally in a closet. Where is my chair? Why am I in a closet? So yeah, anyway, this video starts with Frank getting asked a question.
What do you have to say for people who don't fit in your definition of man or woman? I'm a biologist. I understand the biology. Are you saying that a woman is only a person who has two X chromosomes and a man who is someone who only has an X and a Y chromosome?
I think that's the scientific definition, yes.
It's actually not.
So this person is 100% correct here, though I do find it annoying how a lot of these conversations tend to revolve around sex. Even if someone like Frank Turek agrees that sex is a lot more complicated than what we learn in high school, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to start gendering trans people correctly. The most likely outcome is that they switch to another definition to say that there's only two genders and you can't change between them. That is why I try to make it clear that there's a distinction between sex and gender, because, you know, I haven't changed my chromosomes, I haven't changed my gametes. But my gender, which again is not sex, is far more aligned with that of a woman than a man.
But you can be a woman with female genitalia and be XY. You can be a man, but you can have XX chromosomes.
Yeah, I understand what you're talking about, Grace. You're talking about a very rare condition known as intersexed. Right.
1 in 100 people experience chromosomal differences in sex.
Okay, but not 1 in 100 have different genitalia or ambiguous genitalia.
And what do you say to those people?
Well, what you say is that's a situation that is not the norm.
I think what's being gotten at here more is, does Frank consider these people men, woman, or does he need a third category to define these people? Because there are definitely times when someone's sex can be quite ambiguous, and you really just don't know. This can actually lead to some people having a gender that is not actually based on their sex, especially if you were to take a very rigid view of sex like some people do. The definitions I'm talking about here often boil down to SRY equals male, no SRY equals female, no in between, it's binary. In that kind of case, it is very easy for someone to be assigned a gender that does not match their sex because, you know, we can't always tell if someone has an SRY gene or not.
We're not saying that they're not people, obviously. As I understand it, maybe you know more about it than me, when you do have a truly intersexed person, at that point, either the parents or when they're old enough, they can decide which way they're going to orient themselves, and they can get the appropriate surgery.
So I don't know how much Frank knows about this, but there is a bit of a problem when it comes to intersex people, especially when the parents decide, we want this intersex child to be a boy or a girl. Often they have been put through surgeries at a young age so that they fit nice and neatly into one of our gendered boxes. Most of these surgeries are done under the age of 5, are completely unnecessary, so could wait until the child is older. But Frank Turek's answer here does make me wonder, does he believe that someone getting surgery changes their sex? Because that's what it kind of implies. Because firstly, I don't think I've seen Frank Turek make a distinction between sex and gender, and he seems to base men and women off of sex, not gender. And of course he implies that if an intersex person has surgeries to make her a woman, then that would make her a woman.
But that's not what we're experiencing in our culture.
So you're saying that it's okay for people to decide their gender?
In that situation, but that's not what we're talking about in our culture. What we're talking about in our culture are people with perfectly normal functioning sexual organs trying to have them removed and trying to transition to another gender, which is impossible scientifically.
Okay, so he says that it's impossible to change gender scientifically, but what if they're intersex? Because it really does sound like if someone is intersex and has gotten surgeries to become a woman, then he would consider her a woman. However, he doesn't appear to be extending that to trans people.
You're saying that we all change and that obviously transgenderism is a product of some kind of phase, but you've never doubted that you're a man. So
no,
where's your development of this change?
Grace, I'm not denying there are people truly with gender dysphoria. I've already said that. What I'm saying is the way out of that problem is not surgery according to the data. Okay? Psychiatry is the way out of that problem.
Frank seems to have forgotten about something here. Hormones. Because even if he was right about surgeries not being an answer, which he's not, the regret rate for trans surgeries is less than 1%. there's still hormones that you can take. I know that for me personally, hormones have helped far more than any psychiatrist ever could. I mean, psychiatry would not have stopped my hairline from receding, because that's not how that works. Also, I haven't seen any evidence that shows that psychiatry is better for trans people than transitioning. In fact, you can use psychiatry in addition to transitioning. People often forget that it's not one or the other, but what Frank seems to be thinking more of here is not so much psychiatry, but conversion therapy. And of course, conversion therapy is a thing that cannot be used with transitioning because, you know, the whole point is that you don't transition. Also, there isn't any good evidence out there that shows that conversion therapy is actually effective.
You implied that transgender people are more likely to commit suicide after surgery. But the statistics say that transgender people are more likely to commit suicide because of arguments that you make that they're invalid.
No, I'm not saying they're invalid.
I'm just saying that you implied that it's the surgery that's causing suicide. No,
it's not. What I'm saying is the surgery doesn't fix anything. That's the point. It's practically the same rate whether they have the surgery or not.
So on this particular topic, the evidence does seem to be limited. But what evidence we do have seems to suggest that he's wrong. In fact, a narrative review of 23 different studies actually did show a reduction of suicidality after receiving gender-affirming care. Now, the review did note that the studies do have some problems, but also noted that the studies that showed the opposite also have problems. So you can try to make an argument that surgery makes no difference. However, the evidence does indicate that it's more likely to be positive. It's also worth noting that the review was looking specifically at suicidality and not at general mental well-being. Of the studies that I've looked at that look at mental well-being does seem to improve. In fact, one study's findings showed that mental health improves over time after receiving surgery. So that is to say that the vast majority of data that we have on the subject shows that trans people do benefit from surgery. Sure, some of that data could be better, but I don't see that as a reason to just outright dismiss it.
Have you ever heard of gynecomastia?
I had it.
And so did you have that fixed?
Yes, I did.
And did that make you feel affirmed in your gender and comfortable in your body?
So let me get this straight. The person who is against people getting surgery to transition got surgery that a lot of people who transition get. In fact, not only did he get a surgery that trans people are likely to get, he got the surgery that is most common for trans people to get. Top surgery. And often the argument that I hear against top surgery from people like Frank Turek is that, oh, they're cutting off healthy breast tissue, which is basically what Frank Turek did. Now, I will say that asking if it made him feel affirmed in his gender is a bad question because of course he's going to say no. I would ask, did that surgery make your body more how you wanted it to be? Though, of course, it would also be funny to ask, why didn't you try psychiatry?
And do you feel more comfortable in your body and more affirmed in your gender because of that?
Well, it wasn't a gender thing for me.
So if it wasn't a gender thing, why did you get it? You can always be a man with breasts if you want to. And also, would you be okay if someone who was assigned female at birth decided, you know what, I want to get rid of my breasts. It's not a gender thing, I just want to get rid of them. I very much doubt that he would be okay with that, to be honest.
It had nothing to do with my gender, okay? So it had to do with the fact that it looked really odd. Let me just put it that way.
Why did it look very odd, Frank? Could it have something to do with the fact that you see yourself as a man? I would guess that having breasts as a man did not match the body type that you wanted. Unless, of course, you think that breasts look weird on everybody, and I mean, each to their own.
If we truly care about people, are we going to try and force them down a road, particularly as children, into a solution to a problem which is proven not to be a solution?
So A, it hasn't been proven to not be a solution. That is an assertion by Frank Turek. B, I don't really think people are forced into having surgeries. There can be some pressure sometimes, yes, but in my experience, that hasn't been from trans people. It's been from people who say, you are not a woman unless you have the surgery. And C, the amount of children who have gender-affirming surgery are very low, and there's definitely going to be some kind of safeguard in place so that not anyone can get it. I would be very shocked if there was any place that existed that allowed a minor to go through with top surgery without doing something like puberty blockers or hormones first.
You just said that having that surgery made you feel better about yourself.
That has nothing to do with transgender surgery. I wasn't changing my sex. I was having breast tissue removed. Okay? I was always a man.
So when it comes to removing breasts, you are not changing your sex. However, you are altering a secondary sex characteristic. Just like me shaving, that isn't me changing my sex. It is, however, altering a secondary sex characteristic.
And say that I have XY chromosomes, but I'm born with female genitalia and female body types, but I believe I'm a man. Should I not be allowed to have that breast tissue removed?
As an adult, you can do whatever you want.
Yes, that's fine.
My problem is with the children. That's where I'm having a real problem.
Except, Frank, you have stated in opposition to gender-affirming surgeries on the basis that they don't really help trans people. Not to mention that you don't really seem to care all that much about the surgeries done on intersex people as minors. Something it seems like in a lot of places a parent can just decide for an intersex kid before even the age of 5.
Is there a magic button at 18 that instantly makes you feel like you know who you are and absolutely what your gender is?
I think for women it's probably like 15. For men it's 37. But no, we've just chosen 18 kind of as the adulthood crossing point, although for some issues it's 21, like drinking, okay? So, no, maybe it's later than 18.
So there are definitely questions on when is it okay for someone to get some kind of surgery. I don't really know the answer. I much prefer an approach of after a certain age, sure, do what you want. But before that age, take an individual approach to see whether someone needs it or not. Also, I think it's very important to consider what age we're setting here because you can set it too early or you could set it too late.
My big problem, and I would say this is somebody who's 37, that the surgery does not appear to help anyone. And if you want more data on this, you can go to sexchangeregret.com.
So the website that you're telling people to go to find out about whether surgery is helpful is a website that only lists one side of the story. I'm very sure Frank Turek would highly recommend someone going to atheistcommunity.org to find out whether Christianity is true, right? Also, as an aside, I checked that website to see what it was like, and it was unintentionally hilarious. You see, on the website there is a link that says, regret is not rare, see the evidence. And clicking on that link takes you to a page which has 2 bullet points. One of them is a study, but that study was explicitly called out in the narrative review I mentioned earlier for doing things very weirdly. For example, rather than comparing pre-surgery to post-surgery, it compared post-surgery to the general population. And the other bullet point? That was a subreddit. How is this real?
But I wouldn't even be talking about this issue unless I thought the current way the culture's going is hurting people. And it is. Why would I bring all this abuse on myself?
Well, if you think it's hurting people, you're going to want better evidence than Sex Change Regret, a website where its only evidence is 2 bullet points and one of them is a subreddit. Anyway, that is it for the video. And honestly, the message that I got from Frank there is that people like himself with gynecomastia, they need to try psychiatry because obviously that's going to work better, right? Anyway, leave a like and subscribe if you liked that video. Leave a comment letting me know what you'd like to see me make videos on in the future. As always, a big shout out to my $20 or more patrons: Hugh Jarsz, M.C.Nutkin, Vermont1777, Tony C, Rosyna Keller, KidVicious, Sacha Campbell, definitely not NASA, Morrie, Richard M Chapman, Kaylee, and FistWizard. If you want to support me financially, you can do so on Patreon, there should be a link there, or you could buy me a coffee, link in the description. I will see you in the next video. Between you and me, thank you for watching.